guys, it's Jessica from Peace Love Books, and today I'm here with my mid-June wrap-up, or yes, June mid-month wrap-up. I've read 15 books so far in the first half of the month. I did go to Dallas and went to Book Bonanza, so like that whole weekend I really wasn't reading, so I'm really proud of how much I've read. I've read some really good stuff. I am in my small town era right now, so I have a lot of small town romances. I do have a couple dark stuff and some novellas, some stuff for some projects that I'm working on for my channel, so I will go ahead and chat about the books that I've read. I am trying to make my way through Catherine Cowell's backlist, so I read Beautifully Broken Redemption, and this one, as you can tell, is a marriage of convenience romance, and I really enjoyed this one. It was super sweet. I think I gave it 4.5 stars. Our heroine is taking care of her niece and nephew, and her sister ends up dying, and so she really wants custody of them, and she has a really hard past that she has really come a long way from. She trusted the wrong guy when she was a teenager. He had drugs on him, blamed her, so she went to jail for it, and like no matter how hard she tried, her parents wouldn't help her with anything, so she didn't really have good representation. Even though like none of the drugs were hers, they blamed her and she went to jail, and so she has a record, and when she got out, her parents wanted nothing to do with her. She also grew up in a very abusive household, so her father was abusive to her and her sister and her mother, and so she is trying to just like build this life for herself, so she went to this shelter. She now helps run this shelter that is really big in these books. We've seen the shelter before, we've seen this heroine. This is the last book in the series, and in order to get custody of her niece and nephew, someone else who works at the shelter, who has been nothing but kind to her, very interested in her, he ends up offering to marry her, and now he's very wealthy as well. He is friends with one of the heroes from the previous books, and it's their romance. It's very sweet, and definitely this series in particular has a lot of suspense at the end. I think every single heroine gets kidnapped at some point, and you have to figure out like who's trying to hurt her or why, and the heroes are all very protective, and so I enjoyed this one as a small town romance. It was a great way to wrap up the series. A very sweet marriage of convenience, because they do get married, and then his family is like, what are you doing? She's using you for your money, because that's happened in his past before. He lost his parents, and so it's just him and his sister, and I just really enjoyed this one. I think I give 4 stars, and I highly recommend the series. Then a book I've talked about like incessantly already is Puck Me Secretly by Odette Stone. I read book 3 back in February, loved it so much, and so I went back and read book 1. I know Michae from What Hates Michae absolutely loves it, so I finally read it, and it is such a good hockey romance. So our hero and our heroine meet on a plane to Canada that crashes, and the hero really helps her through it, the heroine, and they end up spending the night together. Things heat up, and then what happens is the next day the hero is very cold and distant and leaves, and they realize that he is a hockey player for her father's team. Her father is the general manager. She is now coming to Canada in order to train to be the general manager, even though she doesn't want to. She promised her family she would give it a year, and she is trying to earn respect because people think she's only gotten the job because it's her father, and she is just not smart or good enough for the position, so she meets a lot of resistance from a lot of the people that work for the team, but she's trying to prove herself, and she realizes that the hero she had a one-night stand with is the hotshot new hockey player who has a hothead, who has a very damaged PR reputation right now, and so they need to really work on that as a team, and they end up falling for each other. And obviously it's forbidden because she's trying to gain respect. She obviously can't hook up with one of the players. He has some secrets about what caused him to go off on a teammate on his previous team, and then there's a little bit of suspense thrown in the end too, which was really fun. So I gave it 5 stars. I listened to it all in one day on audio. I could not put it down. I already have book 2 downloaded. I'm so excited to continue on with the series. I'm obsessed with Odette Stone. So then on audio, you guys are going to be really surprised. I listened to an entire duet back to back. Go me, I never do that, but I decided to read Bring Down the Stars by Emma Scott. Emma Scott was at Book Bonanza, so I was trying to pick up more from her. I didn't even realize I owned this book from the last time I met her. I met her at a signing a few years ago, and I picked this one up. It's a duet, and I know around the time I was reading it, I watched Jess from Honest Fiction's review of it too after I finished book 1. So after her review, I was glad I watched it though, because this does deal with the military. This is a love triangle, and we don't really see them in the military though until the very end they join the military, and that's heavily involved in book 2. So just know that going in case that's triggering content to you guys at all. They do go off to war. Just know that reading this. But this one, our heroine is in college and she just got out of a long-term relationship where her boyfriend cheated on her. So she's like, no men ever. And then she meets Connor, and Connor is just like very suave and sweet talking. He's rich. And she also meets Weston, who is Connor's best friend, who's very grumpy. He is poor. He grew up poor, and he immediately became best friends with Connor though when he started at a prep school that he got a scholarship at. And Connor's family is full of politicians. They're super wealthy. Take Weston and his family under their wing. Weston goes to college, and it was obvious that Connor and Weston would go to college together, but Connor really wants to just open a bar and just have fun with life, and his parents are like, you're gonna be serious, you can't do that. And Weston kind of helps him through college, does a lot of his papers for him. And so they see our heroine, and Weston's immediately intrigued by her, and there's just like undeniable chemistry and attraction between them. But Connor is like, this is who I need for my parents. They're gonna respect me, and I really like her. And it's like Weston doesn't know what to do because he's really into her, but he's always given everything to Connor because Connor's done so much for him. And so it's a love triangle because our heroine starts dating Connor, but there's like this thing with Weston that she's like, oh, I feel it, but I can't do anything about it, and it's so angsty. I really enjoy this one, but I will say it took a really serious turn at the end when they decided to enlist in the military. But I think it's really important knowing that going in so you're not caught off guard when that happens, because book 2, this one has to do with the repercussions of what happened there and who the heroine ends up with. Now, there's only 2 POVs in here, so you know who she ends up with because the third guy doesn't have a POV. I won't tell you who it is. I think it's kind of obvious who she ends up with though, but you get really frustrated with the characters because they're really playing with our heroine's emotions and her heart and dictating who she's with when she should be able to one to decide that. And Weston's also a poet, which I really love, but like Connor would take credit for some things. So it's a little frustrating, very messy, but I believe I gave both these 5 stars. I especially gave book 1 5 stars, but book 2 is very heavy, especially with one of the heroes, and deals with the aftermath of being in the military. So yeah, it was just really good, a really fun, not, I mean like serious, but like a really enjoyable angsty romance, and I love the angst, gave me all the emotion, so I gave both of these 5 stars. In between listening to those, I did finish a book for reading BookTuber's favorite romances of all time, and so I ended up reading No Tomorrow. This is hefty. I read it physically. I actually ended up reading it in like 2 or 3 days. It didn't take me too long to read, even though it's over 600 pages. I've been reading a lot of long books lately. This month I kind of laid off the long books, but last month I was reading very long books. This one is very interesting because I don't think I would consider myself loving it for the romance. This one is more about these 2 people who go through a lot together and are very toxic for one another, but they are literally meant to be together. So romance-wise, I wasn't the biggest fan, but our hero and our heroine meet when our heroine goes to the same place for lunch every day, and she sees a street musician who's homeless. She strikes up a conversation with them, and they fall in love, and he lives under a bridge. At one point he lives in a shed. It's just him and his dog, and he just wants to make music. And now it's pretty clear from the beginning that he has substance abuse issues. I thought it was very odd though. There was a scene, I didn't need to talk about this. There was a scene where the hero was sick. He just like wasn't feeling well, and so she goes home and gets Vicodin to bring to him, and I'm like, if someone's sick, I bring them like Tylenol, like cold medicine, not your leftover Vicodin from when you had a surgery. It was very odd to me, and like he was like, whoa, I can't take that, like I'm a recovering addict. But even if you aren't a recovering addict, I would never give my prescription pills to someone that are that strong. It was a very weird scene. The heroine, like from the beginning, felt very naive, and we learned things about the hero and his life that the heroine did not know about, that I feel like she should have seen if she wasn't so naive. And I feel like she like blindly was in this relationship with him and completely willfully ignored all these signs that as a reader I'm like, there's something going on. And she was just like, oh, he's being him, and I'm like, there's something going on. And it was very frustrating to read. And now I get like people in their lives ignore those signs because they're in denial, but I was just a little frustrated. But they have just like this epic sweeping romance. It spans like 10 years. They have their ups and downs, but they are extremely toxic for one another. And as a romance, I wasn't in love with it, but as a book, I couldn't stop reading. So I gave it 4 stars. I don't think I could give it 5 stars. I just didn't love them together because of how toxic they were. Like he would break her heart over and over and over again to the point where she would like not even want to work. She was just so broken that she couldn't move on with life multiple times throughout this book. And I was like, I know you love him, but he is so toxic for you, and this happened over and over again over the 10 years, and I'm like, at some point you just gotta cut it off. Like, I know you're soulmates, and so it was really hard to read that, and I wasn't rooting for them to end up together because they were just so broken when they kept on doing things to each other like that. So I don't know. I had all my feelings in my vlog. Go watch it if you want more thoughts, but I gave this one 4 stars. Then I read Rustic Hearts by Amber Kelly. I know a few of my friends have read this. I know Victoria from Victoria's Romance Reads put this in the best books like she's read this year, so I was very excited to read it. Unfortunately, first off, I listened to this on audio and I really did not like the narrators. Their voices just did not mesh well, and I just didn't like listening to them, and so I was already just like, oh, I have to listen to this book, and I did not like it. Then I feel like the romance kind of took a backseat to the family drama. Our heroine is back in town after not being in town for a long time because her parents got a divorce. She was always been told her father cheated on her mother and pretty much kicked them out. So she's back for her grandmother's funeral. She's a very successful jewelry designer in like New York City or something. It's a big city. And she is immediately really angry at the hero, who is the step nephew of her dad, but I feel like he ended up living with them because his parents died. I don't remember, but she is just like really angry at everybody who got her life that she feels like was stolen from her because of her dad, because she was forced to leave. Okay, now it is thundering outside. It is literally 12:30 in the afternoon and it's like storming. Anyways, hopefully you don't hear the thunder going on. I just shook the house. Okay, anyways, I'm gonna continue. Hopefully the power doesn't go out. It's their romance, and so she continues to stick around after her grandmother's funeral, and they fall in love. And I thought it was okay, but there was just so much drama with her family and also his that I didn't really care for the romance, and I just didn't like the narrators. And I feel like the narrators made me not as connected to the characters and care about them as much and care about their romance. So I gave it 3 stars. I might have given it 4 if I read it physically, but I would skip the audiobook for this one. Then I decided to read a couple novellas because of my trip to Dallas. Whenever I travel, I want to read like shorter things because I have no attention span when I'm traveling. So I read Little Green Vines, and this one, I always forget the author, is by Britt Andrews, and this is a sapphic monster novella. So our one heroine is just this very innocent virginal heroine. She's always known that she liked women, but she's always been told that's not okay, especially she liked a woman and the woman was like, I feel the same way too, but because of society, like, we can't do this. And it felt very like fairy tale to me because she was just like in this little town and she goes into the woods and this monster, this like, I feel like it's like poison ivy. She just like is this like garden monster, I guess, with vines and stuff. She has been watching the other heroine for a long time, waiting for her, and entices her into the woods and has her way with her consensually, but they like have a good time together. But the one heroine is so naive and innocent, and that was like over and over and over again talked about, and this is such a short novella that I was like, okay, I get it. And so it was a little bit much, but this was basically all just pure spice in this book. So I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. I wanted a little bit more, I mean, it's a novella, but I wanted more depth to that character, the one heroine from the village, because it was just constantly talked about how she's like, I don't know what's happening, but I really like it kind of thing. So it was just okay, 3 out of 5 stars. I did like the whole vine monster concept. I do like monster romances, so I did enjoy that. Then I read Grading Curves by Name Simone. This one is a taboo forbidden romance between a professor and her student, but they meet when she goes into a tattoo shop and she gets a tattoo and they have a conversation. She's super nervous because she's never gotten a tattoo before, and she is older, and they kind of hook up, but then she freaks out and leaves. And soon after, she realizes he is a student in her class, and he is like, I want you. And it goes from there. And I really like a hero who goes after what he wants. It was super fun. It was very short, but I had a good time with this. I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I love a good taboo romance, and I really liked their connection over the tattoos in the beginning, so I had a good time. Then I read Psycho by Onley James, and these are serial killer romances that are just so sweet and wholesome, and I love it. This one, I forget the hero's name. They all start with an A. I don't remember his name, but he is a professor and he's a psychopath, and he has been like a genius since he was little. His mother did have a mental illness, and so she was more terrified of him than anything and did not take care of him. So he was taken away pretty young and given to the doctor who adopted all the psychopathic children, and he likes to kill people. And so the other hero, interestingly enough, is not clairvoyant, but when he, I forget the word they use, when he touches someone, he can see things about them. And so he was kicked out of the FBI because he realized one of the other FBI agents was a serial killer. No one believed him, and he was put in a psych ward, and now he's a professor, and he touches our other hero, sees him killing people and freaks out. And our other hero is like, you know what? I like him and I want him. And so he pursues him relentlessly, but like in a sweet way. And it's so cute. He's like, do you want to have lunch? And he's like, no, I don't want to go out to lunch with you. He's like, well, what if I bring you lunch here? And shows up in his house. He breaks into his house, goes through his stuff, and is always around. And he's just like, I want you. Like, I've never felt this way, but I want you. And so it was just so sweet. And he believes the other hero without a doubt about his like abilities, because most people think that he's just crazy. And so he really opens up to him, and then they're trying to take down this FBI agent from his job who has now come into town to taunt him. So it definitely had a lot of romantic suspense elements. I do think my only complaint is the end wrapped up so quickly. Like, we had this whole villain and all these things happening, and then it just like happened and it was over. And I was like, that's what we were building up to. So I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars, but these have just like the most wholesome, sweet romances ever. Like, they just are so smitten with each other, and I really enjoyed it. So I can't wait to continue on in this series. Then I read Wrath by Coralie June. I listened to this on audiobook. This is book 2 in the series. Our heroine is in love with 3 brothers, and they are her friends' brothers. And so we have some villains we're dealing with in here, and the brothers are fighting for like their power dynamics within the group, because there's one that's the head of the mafia, but the other ones are kind of standing up to him now, and they're all obsessed with our heroine. That's really all I can say about the plot, but I give this one 4 stars. I really enjoy the series. They're very quick audiobooks, and I love all the brothers and how different they are, and I don't think I could choose a favorite. And I like how they were battling with each other too, and like their place in their whole like mafia empire that they're running. And there's new villains every book, and it's fun. Always kept on my toes, so I can't wait to read book 3 and be done with this trilogy. Now you can probably hear the rain, which I apologize for. Okay, so then I read Weight of Regret by K.K. Allen. This is a small town romance, and our heroine used to work at this camp, fell in love with our hero, but he's like 10 years older than her, and then she had bigger and better things in life though, and he pretty much breaks her heart so that she'll go away to Seattle to work for a company and live the big city life. Her company is hired to help the PR of the camp, and she is sent there, but she's having an affair with her boss currently and gets sent back, and old feelings come up. I really enjoyed this one. I think I'm gonna be at 3.5, but rounding up to 4. The heroine, it was very interesting. It was so like shocking when she started hooking up with her boss. I was like, I did not see that coming. And they had this kind of really just physical relationship that she wasn't like super invested in, but then she comes back into this small town where she had all these memories from. It's like an island, and her and the hero really have to unravel things that had happened to them and like what their future could look like. And I liked it. I do wish we had more camp though, because they were at the camp when it was closed, and I was like, the whole point of this was like they went to this camp that she had helped run. It's definitely like big city coming back to the small town that she's from. I enjoyed it, and there are like a few characters that were kind of like cliche villains in here, but I liked seeing his family and her falling in love with the town again. So I gave it 3.5, but rounding up to 4, and I'm excited to read the next one in the series. Then I'm finally getting to Devney Perry books that I'm like obsessing over in these series. They all start out okay, but the Lark Cove series, I've been giving all the books like 4 stars. They were good, but Tragic I gave 5 stars. This one was so sad. So obviously you can tell like there's a lot of emotion based on this cover. The hero has lost a lot in his life, and he is living in this cabin. Our heroine got a divorce. Her husband cheated on her, and she moved into this cabin, but it's like so crumbling and like old, so she's renovating the entire thing. First run-in with the hero, she sees him like breaking down in the forest, doesn't say anything, and the next time she sees him, he is marching over to complain that her stuff's on his property, she's making too much noise, and she like puts him in his place and is like, it's renovations, what do you expect, and I'm on my property. And then they have a one-night stand, because she is like, he is so attractive and someone she would want to get over her husband with, but just for the physical experience, not like emotional or anything. So the two start a friends with benefits situation, but like kind of like grumpy neighbor benefits with situation thing, because they're not really friends, but then they spend a lot more time together, and it was really good. I love the emotions in this. She really broke down his walls and figured out what was going on with him, and she was still dealing with stuff with her husband, her ex, and secrets he held from her, and it was so good. I gave it 5 stars. I listened to the audiobook. So emotional. Definitely my favorite in the series. Then I read Fold by Ashley Jade, and this one I listened to on audio, and I gave it 2 stars. I just like the premise, what the heck. So first of all, there's a very graphic school shooting scene in here that I was not prepared for whatsoever, and I did not appreciate it. I also didn't appreciate how just carelessly it was dealt with, because like it happened and then they were like hiding in an elevator, and then they started talking about their relationship problems, and he was like turned on by her belly button ring, and I'm like, there's literally an active shooter outside of that door. let's not do this. So it was very, very odd to me. And so this starts out with our hero is a gambling addict, and I don't even know like how to begin this. So this is definitely a spin-off series from a different series. So I was very confused about who these characters were and their backstory, because there was a lot explored in the previous series about his brother, his brother's boyfriend, and his brother's girlfriend. So like they have a polyamorous relationship going on, and there's still drama with that was just like dumped on us in the beginning of this book, and I was like, I have no idea who these people are and what's going on. So I already didn't love the beginning. So there's two points of view. So I'm like, okay, these people are gonna be together, but the heroine's a lesbian, and she's like, I hate men, I know I'm a lesbian, I'm comfortable with my sexuality, and she was the person that his girlfriend cheated on him with. So his girlfriend was cheating with Kit, I think her name was Kit, and got pregnant though by him. So he believes that his baby is, like, his girlfriend's having his baby, but is still hung up on Kit. So he meets Kit, and he's so attracted to her that he is like determined to date her, even though she repeatedly tells him she's a lesbian. And there's like no progress in their relationship, and then there's a marriage of convenience that comes in, and I'm like, okay, so are they gonna be together? I didn't love how he didn't respect her sexuality, and she was like, I don't like men, I've known that, stop coming on to me, and he won't. And then like they do end up together. It was so odd to me, because like they're the only points of view in this book, so I'm assuming they're gonna be together, and it ends in a marriage of convenience. And it's a marriage of convenience because her grandmother is trying to force her to be with men because she hates that she's a lesbian. I probably should give it 1 star because I hated it, but I only give 1 star to books I DNF, so I don't know. Have you read this? Let me know if you liked it, because it was just weird to me. And then I read Bare to You by Sylvia Day. I'm reading this for a reading vlog that's coming out on Friday, and I give it 3 stars. I guess the first time I read it, I gave it 4, but Gideon and Eva are really annoying together. They will not talk to each other. They refuse to tell their secrets to each other, especially Gideon, and I just didn't really care for them. It's just like super toxic relationship, constantly fighting. I don't know. It was just a lot, and I didn't love it. The writing was okay, but the story itself I wasn't obsessed with. So did I even tell you what it's about? It's just like your typical billionaire romance, and she gets a job at this building, and he pretty much owns the building in half of Manhattan. He's like one of the richest men in the world, and he decides he wants her, and that's the premise. It was fine, 3 stars. Then I read The Outpost by Devney Perry. I was ready to give up on this series because I think I've given the first 3 books 3 stars. I'm not a fan of the series. This one I gave 5 stars. It is forced proximity. Our heroine is an investigative reporter. She was dating a mafia guy to try to bring him down for selling illegal weapons. She does have a friend in her past who did die by suicide with a gun, so make sure you know that going in. So that's why she really wants to bring down these big bad mafia men who were selling guns to people, and they end up finding out, and she has to go into hiding. So she goes to Lark Cove where her best friend lives and meets Bo, and Bo is like their go-to man to fix anything. He is a park ranger, and he ends up taking her to the Outpost, which is a super tiny cabin, like a hunting cabin in the middle of nowhere, and they stay there and they fall in love. So it's forced proximity, and they know they can't fall for each other though. They immediately have just electric chemistry, but she's a city girl. She hates bugs, she hates animals. She's like terrified of his dog at first, and I'm like, don't be terrified of the dog. He was super sweet dog. But they end up falling for each other, and things unravel from there. She ends up writing a romance novel while she's staying there, and it was so good. I love their dynamic so much, and I loved how much he fell for her, and how they really had to question how to make it work, because she had such a city life, but then she's like, what do I want out of life? And I gave it 5 stars. It was amazing. So good. I love a we're trapped in the wilderness romance and survive together. I mean, they weren't really like surviving together. I mean, they were living in a cabin, but it was really good. I'm glad I read it, and I can't wait to read the next one, and hopefully it's good as well, because I am really excited about that heroine. She's a single mom running an inn, so it sounds really good. And those are the 15 books I've read so far this month. Let me know what you've read, or if you have read any of these. I would love to hear. As always, thank you so much for watching, and have a good day.